He's had a long, distinguished career in both the public and private sector. On the private sector side, having served as president for Micromed Medical Supplies, and also most notably of DFS Group. And then in the public sector, having been general manager of GVB, the administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority, and now again as vice president of the Guam Visitors Bureau. Can I introduce Gerry Perez? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Jason, you're not going to get away that cheap. Jason is recognized by Forbes, right? Everybody knows that. So he's trying to bribe you guys with one bottle, raffle. All those in favor of having you do this for the next 3 meetings, raise your hands. So ordered. And I thought I saw the manager for the hotel here who's contributing the price.
Yes.
Tess, she's not here, right?
She has to be.
Okay, well, I guess I can't pick with her, but you know, I was very excited to come to this Rotary Club because I've talked to the other Rotary Club several times. A bunch of old guys, you know, like Phil Florida.
Yeah.
And so when Ryan said to come speak to this club, he said, this is the youngest group, this is the younger group. I walk in and the first guy I see, John Gerry. Looked around, and I saw Gerry Flores. If these are your young guys, man, I'm out of here. Okay, I guess popular conversation today is tourism. This work, Ryan? Let me just say that Guam really never closed. There's this misnomer that we're going to open up our tourism industry. We never really closed down, per se. As a matter of fact, we continue to get visitors. But I think what we mean is our main markets, right? So, man, I can't see this. Can you?
I can bring this closer.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I can see. That's all right. So prior to COVID, yeah, you didn't bring it closer. Yeah. I need binoculars.
Maybe I'll move the podium.
Yeah.
I'll just move the podium.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to read some of the, sorry, Jason. Move
Just move a little bit closer.
Better?
Okay. Thank you.
Good? Okay. Yeah. Okay, anyway, prior to COVID, we were trending for another record year. And 2019, of course, we were tracking better than 1.6 million arrivals. So you can see just based on seat capacity, and I see my friend Ricky here. These are the old days, right, Ricky? Where every month we have close to 200,000 airline seats coming to Guam. And then watch this. And then right when COVID hit, it dropped off. These are your arrival seat pack. Looking this real quick to give you a flavor of really what we're facing. The TM impact is even more devastating. But you know, the whole GVB is funded by Tourist Attraction Fund. And when you go from an average 4.5 to 5 million a month, down to barely 200,000 to 300,000 a month, is a world of hurt, obviously. These are the projections that we have indicated. If you look at the fiscal 2021 projection, it's actually about 82,000. That's pretty drastic. Gerry can remember this. This takes you back to the early 1970s. So what are we going to do to get recovery going? So basically, there are 3 strategic issues that we need to focus on in reopening Guam. First is local issues that we need to deal with. Second is our source markets, and the third is air service. local issues, the most important thing we needed to deal with, focus on for the last few months, is containing the COVID virus. I make you understand that if the car scores is below 2.5, that's an ideal place to be. So we haven't been above 2.5 since December 3rd, and we're currently running at about 0.2 car score, which is very good. And so we're also getting a lot more community vaccinations coming on. I understand there's about 52,000 that have already gotten at least the first dose, and some 20,000 with the second dose already, and more coming. So this is better than the US performance in terms of the vaccines and in terms of fatalities. And with recording the highest COVID alert app adoption as part of this whole process. So what this means is that we're actually getting real close now to developing our messaging campaign to communicate clear and a unified public health information message to residents and visitors concerning safety and hygiene measures that are in place in our businesses and at other attractions, including public facilities, airports, and all the other establishments. So the main reason we wanted to make sure that we sustain this level of containment is that we can build confidence in the self-destination experience for visitors. And that's the kind of messaging we need to start pushing out. As a matter of fact, we're already starting to kind of dribble out that kind of message before we even get into a full campaign. Some of the other local issues we need to deal with, of course, is product quality. We only have destination, Guam, to sell, and we need to fix our product. And it's a constant effort, not just for Tumon, but island-wide. If we market Guam, we create expectations in the mind of our customers. Rightly or wrongly, if we don't deliver on those expectations, then it makes us look kind of sad. So we're doing all our best to fix the flooding problem down in Tumon, culvert cleaning, beautification issues. Public Works has been helping us in terms of enforcing the building code. And it's a long, arduous process because it needs to be legally sufficient in terms of the notification process before they go and put a levy on the property. Very recently, one of the vendors were able to get this struck. Last year, when we started cleaning the culverts, there were actually people that had to go down in that watery mess, and it was a real hazard issue. This truck can do a lot of that now. The thing is, those culverts haven't been cleaned in over 20 years. When it was first installed, the whole Tumon Bay area, we had Typhoon Pongson and Typhoon Chanta. It never got flooded. It never got flooded. But that's not, the culverts have not been cleaned and maintained for over 20 years. There's a lot of buildup, and that's what's creating all the flooding down there. So we've got one main culvert cleared and 2 more to go, and this would help a lot. We're also doing a lot with visitor safety issues, including some of the dilapidated buildings we've got to clear. And so the visitor safety officers, even though we don't have very many tourists per se, we do have a lot of local tourists, and they're just as important in terms of experiencing the destination product. We're even going so far as in March, we plan to roll out the electronic declaration form, so you don't have to fill out paperwork anymore. This is all part of the digitization and migration of the whole travel and tourism industry. And I know, Ricky, there's a spot out there, a couple of spots out there. So you can bring your handheld device and load down the app, and you can do all that in the plane or even before you board your plane. If you don't have a handheld app, you can go to one of these kiosks and punch in your information. And so we expect to institute this sometime in March, probably March 23rd, March 25, I think. In terms of our source markets, we really never went dark, even though there's no action, right? So we continue to communicate and stay in touch with our travel trade and consumer partners. We've held a lot of webinars, virtual trade shows. One particular trade show we had in Korea just last month, we had over 200,000 people who participated in that virtual trade show. So there's a lot of interest about all it's important to maintain that. So we never went dark in our source market, rather we intensified our social media strategy in all countries and have done pretty good positive results. In Japan, we have ongoing travel trade engagements. We've done 8 trade shows and conventions. We've conducted online webinars and continuously to meeting our airline partners. And we've got like 25 million impressions in some of our social media links with almost 900,000 clicks. In Korea, very similar. Only Korea is a lot more active in social media. And so we continue to engage in different ways. You look at this movement on the left side, that's actually a couple of tourists who are interacting with our social media. I mean, basically the challenge was to show yourself in Guam. They've been here already, so that's how we keep the message going. I see Monty's laughing because this is true, right? On social media, we need to get going. We continue to do our own airline co-promotion program with Korean Air, Jeju, Airsoul, and T-Way. We do our co-op promotions with YB Tour, TJTV, and others. And so this just gives you an idea of the neighbor response we're getting. You can see pretty good activity after a middle year. And that little bit to the right is because we had a vendor's contract that expired, and it took us a couple months to try to get RFP going again, but you can see it bounced right up again. Taiwan is the same, very active social media. We held media interviews with different people there. And this gives you an idea of the social media engagement in Taiwan. So you can see, even though we're not getting any customers right now, we continue to maintain communication with the markets at all levels. Air service, how about that? These are some of the companies that either are continuing to serve Guam in the limited capacity or have plans in the next month or two. United, you should know, of course, never stopped flying Honolulu, Guam, and Narita. They resumed limited service to Manila, and it's become quite a freight hub to Asia these days. In Japan, we have these airlines that have suspended service, some until end of March, but I think I got an update from JAL. And I think which is like late April or May, right? This is what we're talking about now. But you can make the mistake when we announce an opening, it's not like you're going to be coming right anymore. It takes 2 to 3 months to really build up. By the time you make the announcement to the time the trade starts selling Guam, the time they start scheduling the equipment and crew. So it's not like an overnight thing. The announcement that in a particular month, maybe 2 to 3 months before you start seeing really real trickles of that. South Korea, we've got Korean Airline and Airsoul pending announcements right now. T-Way is thinking about March, but we may slip to April. Jeju is planning in May. We've had Junior flying off and on from Guam from time to time, not regular, but they do come from time to time. In Taiwan, we have no service right now in Taiwan. We're trying to encourage them to come back. China Airlines is suspended until end of March and early April, maybe. But EVA Air, as you know, had left Guam some time back. They're very interested in coming back again to Guam and starting service. In addition to that, Starbucks has applied for flights to Guam and 14 U.S. cities. with your civil aeronautics administration. So why do I say this recalibration is necessary? I think we've gotten used to the fact that when we have a setback, a typhoon, an earthquake, economic recession, that within a few months we're back on our feet, right? But this is really different. I had mentioned before that our arrival numbers are in the early 1970s. And I've shared some of the strategic reasons for this diminished travel demand, which is basically based because of bankrupted global economies, ongoing reconfiguration of the tourism industry's violent value chain, and a radical departure. This is important, a radical departure from historically driven scale and consumer-based incentives. If you remember, the whole tourism industry is generally volume-driven and scale-driven. A lot of close proximity, this touchy-feely kind of personality, shaking hands, putting arms around. This is the antithesis of the new COVID protocols now. Used to be when you see crowds in the area, right, people kind of gravitate to, I don't know what's going on. Now you see crowds, right, on stay away. So there's a very radical departure from the whole way. So I think it's instructive to see COVID-19 globally in terms of its tourism impact, and it would be helpful in getting us in our mindset to recalibrate that perspective and framing expectations for recovery. If you look at SARS, we recovered in 5 months, and the economic recession in 2008, it's just a little blip, right? We lost 2 million travelers in SARS. The financial crisis, we had 32 million travelers that didn't travel. Pandemic, we had 1.1 billion people not traveling. So you can see the dramatic difference. So putting that in local perspective, if you look at, this was last year, and this was 1990s level. And the only reason it was 1990s level is because we had a strong first 5 or 6 months of the year that bailed us for the rest of the year. But apples to apples, here's where we are. And this is what I meant earlier, we're back to the early 1970s. So, conclusions today is very simple. Right now, when we do a peer comparison with some of the other islands in the Caribbean, in Indian Ocean and different places, we're underperforming these islands. Some of them are 20, 30% of pre-COVID levels. If we took away the military traffic on Guam, would be hardly anything, right? And a big part of this is the need for Guam to really recalibrate its public health policy. And we're working that right now, actually. Because right now, unless it's changed, the policy is even if you're vaccinated and even if you have a negative test, you're still stuck with 2-week quarantine. But the tourists won't become here. And a lot of these other peer island groups that I was comparing, most of them allow entry with a negative PCR test, and some of them with the vaccines even. But the bottom line is they're starting to recover their arrival numbers, whereas we're still kind of struggling. And a strategic piece of this is the public health policy. And I'm real happy to know that the governor has basically designated GVB to lead the recovery task force. And a big piece of this is getting our house in order so that people in Guam can feel safe, get more vaccinations from the frontline workers. And so the reopening task force, the GVB working with public health and CDC, airport, of course, and GHRA to try to have I think we're having the first meeting tomorrow, Mary, to repeat, to outline who needs to do what, when, where, and how to handle all the key issues that are of importance to the medical community so that we can try to get all this work done within the next month or two prior to opening. The bad news is we're like starting from 1970s, right? The good news is the island's physical plant, institutional infrastructure, and nexus to our markets can enable recovery without waiting 50 years. Thank you very much.
Will we can turn on the lights, please? Any questions from our membership?
Hi, Ms. Perez. I think last year, Hawaii received a designation from Japan as a preferred safe destination of some sort that the country of Japan gave to Hawaii. Destinations, has Guam looked into this at all? The intent to, is it possible that it even exists anymore?
Hawaii is kind of mixed because they're mainly talking about returning residents or students and business people. For Guam, the bottom line is we're working on that right now to try to increase the vaccinated population to get to the point where we can actually message out to everybody, Japan or anybody else, that we have COVID under containment and that we are a safe destination to visit and experience. I don't want to pick on one country, but we should really broaden that message beyond just Japan.
Questions? Dr. Stan Yasuhiro, one of our other newer honorary mosaic.
Thank you, President. Hey, Gerry, how are you doing?
I said,
I'm glad that you had some information regarding cooperation with the public health system here. But historically, the members in the tourism community have not been very supportive of public health and with the negative comments and everything. And so what was surprising to me is that you showed a graph of how SARS became an effect, bird flu. And every time something like that happened, we took a hit, especially from Japan. And yet we really never heeded to the situation or learned from that, you know, basically GVB is a people business. And yet we're not protecting the people, especially the local people. And so rather than have negative attitude from the tourism industry towards public health, is it possible to encourage your members to maybe help public health and their dwindling budget because of all the senators that are getting on the bandwagon as far as gee, I guess the consensus here is that public health isn't really needed, so we're just going to cut everything out. And right now, they are going like crazy trying to vaccinate people. As far as the vaccination is concerned right now, the limiting factor is how much vaccines we're getting from the states. It's not up to us. As far as getting the people vaccinated, we have public health personnel, we have people volunteering in the community, and we have the military, the Guard. They decided to basically try and take care of the UOG side. They are now asking for help from public health because they kind of went over their heads on certain aspects. So, you know, we all need to cooperate with public health, get rid of this problem. Otherwise, people are not going to come back. You can open up the airport, you can open up the island. They're not going to come back unless they feel safe, like as you mentioned.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Doc. And that's why one of the, actually, the first priority of this task force at this meeting is to address that issue. How do we make our residents safe? Because they're working in the hotels, they're, you know, frontline people, right? So the more we inoculate our population against that disease, the more we can market to people that we are a safe destination to visit. And there's pent up demand. because of limited time, I didn't go through a lot of the marketing stuff here, but I know that about 18% right now of people in Korea would like to travel within the next 6 months to a year. 18% of like, you know, how many people there is a big market to go after. In Japan, about 7% have indicated they would like to travel to Guam already. With this pent-up demand, I think it's easy for us to not only meet our current expectation, but there's a real possibility for us to improve it by 30%, and a real stretch goal of 130,000 people compared to 82,000 is achievable. So we gotta get busy. I don't see Ricky here, I see Gerry here. We're all part of this little task force that we're putting together, right? And I'm just glad that the governor recognized that we cannot stay closed forever, that we need to address the public health issues and as a way to jumpstart the economy. So that's number one. Thanks for that.
Hey, Gerry.
Hey, hi there.
How is it gonna work at the airport? So we started getting the tourists coming. Do you know how the airport is going to operate under the COVID situation? Maybe also now you have that new wing that was just finished. Talk a little bit about that as well.
You know, that's a perfect question for me to hand my mic over to Ricky. Ricky, you better take this because
Yeah, I think, as it relates to the international arrivals corridor, you know, we've been receiving real flights and these flights on Monday. And so, once we activate the international arrivals corridor, the difference is instead of going through the departure terminal to customs, where you have those temporary border walls, you would go up different pods. And those pods will bring you up to the third floor, and you would cross over the departure terminal into customs and border protection. So that would be the difference for the international arrivals corridor. We haven't activated yet. I think it's been turned over to us effective today. I know we had the ribbon cutting last week. But I think Gerry can speak to the customs declaration form. But just to note that the public health declaration process, as it relates to if you receive the test and whatnot, that still needs to be digitized, and we're working with public health and GVB to get that process going, because we want to make sure that it's a streamlined process and it's customer friendly.
yeah, thanks, Ricky. You should know that the QR code that we put together for customs declaration form is set up so that it can link in with an app from public health or from the World Health Organization in terms of their QR codes that they're trying to universally develop right now.
Vice President Monty?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Perez. Dr. Perez. But Gerry, I know when you were first assigned down to GVB, you came out with a list of strategic, tactical things that Guam needed to do. One of them, of course, we just talked about is the digital customs support, which is very good because we're moving towards that direction. Now, in terms of our overall marketing strategy, with this last now going to be 12 months that we're down, and we're trying to design really our customer mix, our new traveler mix, so to speak, but also changing our opportunity to attract a better customer or a higher yielding customer with the new Sabaki Hotel behind here, and of course at Lucid. What is the strategy now? Now that we got a new board, is this strategy that you presented will be adopted in how we attract and grow back our arrival numbers? We're not going to chase high density numbers or gross numbers, but we're going to attract a better yielding customer and grow us back slowly.
Yeah, the marketing plan that I laid out are very broad strokes. Within each of those strokes are the details, right? And so very much in mind is the yield. Because I know that a few years ago, we had record arrivals, but this island lost $100,000 or $100 million because we have we don't have the yield. So in terms of marketing, we're going to be looking both for volume, because we need to fill seats, and yield. So, I mean, that's an oversimplification, but in each of our market segments, that's where we're at. But moderating that, or at least influencing that somewhat, is a complete change in a lot of customer sentiments, a lot of consumer sentiments of hygiene, safety, and those kinds of issues. So right now, we anticipate probably a greater number of FITs traveling either individually or in small groups or in pods, as opposed to the usual group tours, package tours. So there's going to be some changes. Along with those changes, as well as the distribution structure. For example, GTV just completely broke down their capital to about 100,000 yen from 2.3 billion something, right? Part of that is a restructuring and closing of one of their offices. Part of that also has to do with qualifying for a tax benefit from the government for being under the 100,000 yen threshold.
Yeah, thank you, Gerry. Thank you for the numbers. Quite sobering, but actually, my question has to do with the culverts that you mentioned earlier on. I know two locations actually along Tumon, the Santos, where the drainage culverts going to the pond basin are just built. And so actually, what I'm looking into is our road level Guam Sunrise is handling a project, a beautification project at the college. And that was to adopt the pond basin and to just kind of, fix it up around the pond basin. And actually, President Jason has really generously offered to have Tumon Bay also collaborate and partner with for this beautification effort. And so I know we've been actually working with Tumon.
You're working with D and probably Keisha, right? Both of them? Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty, it's a very good project to have. And of course, we're there to help. And it's not just the pond basin, but if I recall your plans, it included outside of the flooding basin into the adjacent areas to be fine, right? And did you say Raymond James is going to pay for it all? Jason?
The community service project. All right, let's give a round of applause. Gerry Perez. Dr. Gerry Perez.